Ducks fans, are you ready? You are listening to the Ducks and Pucks podcast with your hosts, Mike Walters and Eddie Jones. This is the #1 home for Anaheim Ducks talk and analysis. Here we go.
All right, welcome back to the Ducks and Pucks podcast. This is your host, Mike Walters. I'm along with my co-host, Eddie Jones. And if you're a Ducks fan, you probably had a rough week. The Ducks didn't win a game this week. They only ended up getting 1 point in the 3 games and went through a little bit of a mini-slump. But Eddie and I are here to tell you that everything is going to be okay. We promise everything will be fine. So we're going to go over all the games, get to some other issues around the league, and kind of talk about the Ducks and their struggles and what they're going to do to get better, Eddie. This week was kind of rough. It didn't start out too bad. They played Washington. It was a tough game, went to a shootout, and they ended up losing that game in a shootout in the last shot. But it ended up not being that bad of a game, Eddie.
Yeah, I think everybody was happy with the result. I think Washington played a lot better game, especially in the third period. They played really strong, and for the Ducks to hang in there against such a great team and a team that's been atop the league for almost all the season, I think it was a great effort, and it showed their fight and their will to, and the fact that they could stick it up there with some of the best teams. But I mean, you look at then Washington going off and losing pretty badly to LA and losing badly to San Jose last night. It's kind of disappointing that they played us the hardest, and then you see them go off and lose big against the other two California teams.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a double-edged sword because it doesn't help us. We were hoping we would take out Washington and maybe they would beat the Kings and the Sharks. So it didn't work out that way. This game had started out good. I mean, Ryan Getzlaf had that blast, 1 minute even into the game, and you kind of thought things were going to look good. And then, unfortunately, Washington got that early goal in the third period, and we went to the overtime knowing we would get a point. But in the shootout, that was really the difference. I mean, you have to give it to Holtby. I mean, he really stopped the Ducks, during the 3 periods and in the shootout. Even Silfverberg wasn't able to score. It was only Corey Perry with a nice move to fake him out, but we couldn't stop them in the shootout. Gibson played well in this one too, but just gave up those 2 shootout attempts.
Yeah, I know it was really a goalie duel in this game. Both goalies played amazing. I mean, we've seen Gibson play well all season, and Holtby's probably a front runner for the Vezina right now. And I mean, that's the only issue you see with Silfverberg in the shootouts. A lot of times, he can beat the goalie. There's no real. It's not a long book on Silfverberg in the shootout. He's going to shoot it, and he's going to try and beat you. He has a great shot, great accuracy in the shootout. And I mean, Holtby read him pretty easy there. He had the glove ready. Just Silfverberg shot it right into his glove. Maybe he missed his target, but it's a tough loss. But I think all in all, continuing the point streak, during that point of the season is good.
Yeah, and then the Ducks, they after the game against Washington, they went on the road for a short 2-game road trip, one against Colorado and one against St. Louis. And they started the game against Colorado not too bad. The opening 5 to 10 minutes, they had chances. They were moving the puck around. It looked like they might try to break through and get a goal early, and they didn't. McKinnon ended up getting one, and Colorado kind of turned it on at the end of the first period there. And really, after that, it was kind of a frustrating game. I mean, really, Colorado used their speed. They had a lot of odd man rushes in the second period, and unfortunately, it led to 2 goals in the final 3 minutes of the period. And the Ducks went down 3-0 at the end of the second, Eddie, and they just could not recover after that.
Yeah, and this game kind of takes you back to earlier on in the season where you look at the shots, you look at the stats for the game, and you say, well, how did they lose 3-0? How did they not score a goal? And part of the credit has to go to Varlamov, who had a great game. But when you actually watch this game, they didn't really control the game. Yeah, they outshot Colorado 37-26, but I mean, Colorado controlled this game with their speed, and it was creating problems all game for the Ducks. The Ducks did have some odd man rushes; they couldn't cash in on them, and you get a fair amount of them against a Colorado team who likes to forecheck and likes to use their speed, and they ended up using it against us, and they contributed to the 3 goals that they had.
Yeah, part of the problem, too, in this game was Sammy Vatanen went down at the end of the first period. If you remember, he had an elbow, which was able to go back and get the video. If you hadn't seen it, you can check it out on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/DucksNPucks podcast. It's up on there along with our shows, obviously. But on there, you can see it. and he was gone. So the Ducks had to rotate defensemen second and third period. And I'm not trying to make excuses for the Ducks, but you could tell they were a little bit off, Eddie, in that second period because there was 4 or 5 odd man rushes in that period, which is uncharacteristic of the Ducks to give up that many in one period.
Yeah, and anytime you have to double shift defensemen, I mean somebody's going to get tired, and I mean it kind of shows how much of a key, even for the offense, Vatanen has been this season. We see it in the next game that we'll talk about in a bit against St. Louis. I mean they'd miss him jumping up into the play, and then Lindholm does a good job, but then when Vatanen is out of the lineup, you have to have somebody else doing it, like Manson or BX, and guys who aren't really used to jumping up in the play and making a play out of it. And I mean, that's something we've seen from Sammy all season, and having missing that aspect in the Ducks game, it ends up creating situations where a guy like Manson has to jump in, and if he ends up jumping in at the wrong time, it creates an odd man rush going the other way.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was difficult for the guys to get that figured out in the second period. I mean, again, not making excuses, but it does throw a wrench in things. And like you said, particularly with Vatanen being the two-way player, being the quarterback on the power play, being more of that offensive-minded player that's going to bring up and carry the play, like you said. And we saw that on the power play. The Ducks went 0 for 3 on the power play, so that didn't help as well. Because Vatanen wasn't out there for all those power plays. So that was, a pain for us to watch and see without him out there, and the Ducks not able to score, this was the same score against Colorado earlier in the season, 3-0. So the Ducks are going to get another crack at Colorado one more time this season, and hopefully they'll do better. But Colorado's had the Ducks number, unfortunately, and hopefully they turn it around that last game. The Ducks did go to St. Louis to finish up the road trip, and again, they started out this game okay. They played better. Getzlaf again getting the goal, just like he did in the Washington game first to start off the scoring for the Ducks. But after that, it was pretty much all St. Louis, Eddie. I mean, Stastny tied it up on a nice redirect play, and it was 1-1 going into the third, which it didn't seem to be too bad at that point. But then, it just became turnover central in the third period, and the Ducks could just not recover.
Yeah, and I don't think I've seen so many unassisted goals in one game, but there was 4 in this game. I mean, Laterra in the early part of the third period got the Blues in front from Schwartz and Tarasenko, and really up until that point, and even throughout most of the game, that line was non-existent. I mean, Kessler did a great job of shutting down Tarasenko and Schwartz and Laterra, and it was paying dividends until the giveaways in the third period. Obviously, a giveaway to Patrick Berglund right in front. He scores unassisted. Raquel scores. Technically, he doesn't score. He gets the goal, but a pass from a Blues defenseman off Stastny's skate into the net, and he scores unassisted. Then a Manson giveaway to the wrong guy out in front of the net, Tarasenko, and he scores unassisted as well. And then he gets his second goal on empty net unassisted at the end of the game. So, I mean, Tarasenko ends up finishing first star, but I mean, the first star for the game for the Blues was the Ducks defense and the turnovers that they were giving up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you hate to say it, but I mean, that's true. That's really what happened in that third period. I mean, the defense really killed it, and you had to feel, somewhat for Anderson because, he played a good game, especially the first 2 periods. And then here you go, 4 goals are scored in the third period, and they're really not his fault. I mean, 3 of them are the defense's fault. The 4th one's an empty netter. Just frustration. I mean, the Ducks had a chance to get back in it, despite the first 2, like you said. Raquel gets credited for the other goal, which a poor week. I mean, Getzlaf has really the only 2 goals this whole week for the team, unfortunately. But I mean, the Ducks still had a chance to come back and at least maybe get tied, get a point, and then like you said, they give up another bad turnover. There was that issue too that came up from this was Fowler and wearing the face shield. He wore it all week after he had his nose injured with Tanner Pearson in that game against LA. And basically, you could tell his passes were, just not there. And it really hurt the team in the third period. So I'm hoping he gets that face shield off pretty soon, Eddie, because that didn't help. And the Ducks also lost Bieksa in this game. I didn't really see the play, but he left in the third period with a lower body injury, and haven't gotten an update yet on his status.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a game where you miss a guy like Sammy Vatanen being able to jump in the play and have that extra guy forward. I mean, St. Louis does a great job of putting four guys back. They push two forwards back with a defenseman, and if you're not having, a defenseman jumping up in the play on every shift, you're at a disadvantage. And you saw that a lot in this game. The Ducks took a lot of shots from the outside. And we're missing the play of Sammy Vatanen, and with Fowler having the face mask, he said a lot of guys, him and Getzlaf both said it feels like somebody's always right on top of you. It feels like somebody's right over your shoulder, and you're kind of making the play faster. It leads to making a sloppier play, and we didn't really get to see him jump up in the play a lot, and that could be because of the face shield. So, I mean, we all hope Vatanen gets back as soon as possible, or maybe they call up a guy like Shea Theodore or Brandon Montour and have that that guy who can pinch up in the play and make some things happen.
Yeah, I agree with you. And there was a lot of people saying that after Vatanen went down and he didn't play the rest of the game against Colorado. He didn't play in the game against St. Louis. A lot of people are talking about Theodore. So, I would like to have him be brought back up too. I mean, especially if Vatanen's not going to be able to play for some time. I mean, we don't really know. They just said that he was day to day. So I would like him to come up. I don't know if he will. Another guy I'd like to see come up is Wagner too. Wrote an article on that. You can check it out on the hockeywriters.com. I actually just posted it before the show today. I kind of go into all of that on the offensive side and why they should bring him up and help out possibly too during this, these last three games, which, I mean, it's not the end of the world. I know a lot of people are upset and frustrated with this week, but the way I look at it, Eddie, is if I'm going to have a slump, I'd rather have the slump now and get this mini slump out of the way and, fix some things and get things going towards the playoffs. I'd rather have it now than come the beginning of April at the end of the season.
Yeah, and we said they're not going to win every game, and they're not, this win streak isn't going to continue 29 games and go to the end of the season and go through the playoffs 16-0 and win the Stanley Cup. I mean, they're eventually going to lose some games. They're going to have some real rough games like these two. I think the big thing is going back home for the next three games and playing strong at home, getting a couple wins here, and getting them back on track.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. I mean, this week they're going to face the New Jersey Devils, the New York Rangers, and Boston. And we're going to see some former Ducks as well. The New Jersey game is going to be an interesting one. If you're following the scores, they beat the Kings in overtime 2-1 Saturday night. So the Ducks are going to get New Jersey. You've got Palmieri on that team that's just blowing it up with 20-plus goals this season. You've got Smith-Pelly now on that team as well, Eddie. So it's going to be an interesting game. I think this one's going to be a hard-fought game. But New Jersey doesn't give up a lot of goals. So I think like the previous meeting, if you remember, the Ducks won. They beat New Jersey 2-1, but it was a low-scoring and tight-checking affair. And I kind of think that's what we're going to see Monday night.
Yeah, I mean, Corey Schneider won't be in this game. He's out for at least another week with an MCL strain, so he won't be in this game, which is a big thing for the Ducks. But Keith Kincaid has been a strong backup for them this season, and they've adopted the defensive approach to their games. The goals really haven't come all season for them. The Ducks did turn it around at one point and pass the Devils, but the Devils still sit 30, I think, goals for per game. So they've relied a lot on Corey Schneider's play and a defensive style of game. So I think it's an advantage. I mean, going up against a backup, it's always an advantage, especially on a team where you get a starter who's going to play 60, 70 games in a season. But it's not going to be easy. They're playing a lot better hockey. It's going to be probably a low scoring affair. Their special teams are pretty good, and like you said, their goals against per game is in top 5 in the league. So it'll be tough, and you got to shut down, first and foremost, Kyle Palmieri, who's going to be their main go-to guy because Camilleri, I believe, is still out of the lineup. I'm not sure if Elias is back yet, but two of their top guys are out, so it should be an easier game on paper, but it's going to be a tight game.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I told some people about the Colorado game. Some people told me, "Oh, this is a slam dunk," and I said, "Well, anything can happen." So this is a game that it can go either way, and I think it's going to be another tight game, probably a 1-goal game. And it's probably going to continue in the next game too against the Rangers. If you remember, the Ducks played New York and they went to overtime and ended up losing in that game 3-2. So this one is probably going to be a close one too, Eddie. I mean, the Rangers are almost the same points as the Ducks, and obviously they're behind Washington, which doesn't say much because the entire league is behind Washington. But they're second in that division. They're going to make the playoffs. And it's going to be tough against New York, another team with a solid defense, and they've been playing well as of late too.
Yeah, and last night they lost to Detroit in overtime. Lundqvist had 40 saves, and they still lost. They've been up and down over the last 6 games, losing, winning, then losing last night. And they've given up a lot of goals as well over that stretch. So, I mean, we might be catching them at the right time. They play today against Pittsburgh. Lundqvist will get the day off, obviously, because he played last night, and then they don't play again until they play us on Wednesday. So they're going to get a lot of rest. Lundqvist might start because they do play the Kings on Thursday. So again, we might see a backup. We might see a Lundqvist. It all depends on how they're going to play it, but they're going to have a lot of rest and they're going to be ready to go.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, and this one's a late start too. I don't understand these late starts, but this one's a 7:30 start, so I guess the New York fans will be watching the game, practically through midnight on this one. I'm not really sure
It's
why.
a 10:30 start here, so
Yeah, I don't understand why we've had some of these games against the East Coast teams at 7:30. I mean, seven's already late, but just note that that's going to be a late start on Wednesday, and Monday is still a 7 o'clock start, and then Friday against Boston is also going to be a 7 o'clock game, and we're going to see another former Duck, one that maybe some of you like and some of you don't like. I mean, I've gotten mixed reactions that I've seen out there, but Bolesky and the Bruins are going to come to town on Friday. He's been doing decent this season. He's got 13 goals, not too bad. And he was playing on the top line for a little while. Now he's down on the third. But Boston's missing some players, and you remember the Ducks blew them out 6-2 in Boston. So not saying the Ducks will blow them out again, but this is one that I would really expect the Ducks to play well and hopefully pull out a win in this game, Eddie.
yeah, I think the only thing that is unfortunate is by not giving up Eriksson and actually by bringing in players at the deadline, the Bruins have gotten a lot better. They've won 5 of the last 7 games in March, and they've won a lot of them big, and the games they have lost have only been by 1 goal, so they've been a lot better. I mean, picking up Stempniak has really helped. He's done excellent since being brought in by the Bruins. Obviously, Eriksson has done really well as well. They got Pastrnak back, which is like another deadline addition for them. He's been playing with Eriksson and has been scoring goals as of late as well. So they're a different team in a way. A better team. They've scored a lot of goals all season. They sit third right now in goals per game, just under 3 goals per game. And their special teams are both in the top 10. So this is going to be arguably the toughest game of the week. And luckily maybe it comes at the end of the week. If you can get 2 big games against the Devils and the Rangers, you might be riding some momentum not into Boston, but against Boston. But they get some time off too. I mean, they don't play till Tuesday against San Jose, and then they have those 2 days off until they play us on Friday. And again, we're in this. We see this situation so many times this year when teams come to Anaheim. They play us on Friday, Kings on Saturday. We might see Tuukka Rask. We might see Jonas Gustafsson. It all depends on who decides to start, who they decide to start on the Friday.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, the scheduling kind of favors some of those teams in the back end here. So it's going to be interesting to see, which goalie goes in for, New York and Boston, as you mentioned. And we're going to, we'll post the updates as the morning skates come and we know who's going to go for which team on which night and everything. It's going to be interesting, too. I mean, the Kings now are 2 points ahead of the Ducks with that overtime loss last night. They both have 15 games to go. We still play LA one more time. So there's still a chance that the Ducks can win the division. Obviously, the Kings have the tiebreaker. They have more of the regulation or overtime wins by a couple of games. So, if they were to win the same amount of games and end up tied from here on out, regulation or overtime games, that is, then they would obviously get that tiebreaker. But there's still a chance, Eddie, that the Ducks can pull this out. They can still win the division. If you listen to the broadcast on the other game against St. Louis, Dan and Steve, I asked them the question about winning the division and how important it is. And, they thought it was actually pretty important because they don't think the Ducks will want to play the Kings or the Sharks in the first round. Not that they don't think that they can't beat them, but they're just saying it would be nice to avoid them and play a Colorado or a Minnesota team in the first round. And I think that's kind of what you and I talked about, Eddie, was the same thing. We'd rather play one of those wild card teams. Not because we don't think the Ducks will win, but you just don't want to play the Sharks or the Kings and go in a 7-game series in the first round and get worn out. Even if you win, and then you gotta carry it on to the next series.
Yeah, definitely. And I still think though it's tough no matter who you play. I mean, obviously all these teams making the playoffs are going to be good, but I mean, maybe I might be switching my tune over to playing Minnesota. I mean, the two times we've played Colorado this season, we've lost 3-0, and I think Colorado plays such a different style from a lot of teams is they just fly at you. They just use their speed. They brought in Bodker, so they're even faster now. They have McKinnon, Duchesne, two faster players in the league. They're a really fast team, and it's difficult to play against them. And the Ducks, their style doesn't match up well with the Avalanche. And I think playing them in the first round, you might end up losing the first two games at home just trying to adapt to their style. I think eventually they could adapt to it and play well and end up winning the series, but you're going to get tired fast, and it's a tough way to start if you got to go against an awkward style team. And I think maybe going out against Minnesota would be a little bit better in the first round, but like you said, you don't want to play the Kings or the Sharks in the first round. I think we all believe the Ducks could beat them in a 7-game series, but you like to avoid that and maybe play them in the second round after the other California teams have beat each other up.
Yeah, I agree. I think the best bet for us, and I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Minnesota, but I think the Ducks would do best against Minnesota right now, like you said. I mean, Colorado's owned us the last two games. The Ducks have played well against, San Jose and the Kings too. I mean, I think they could take them, but like we said, it could be, a long, hard-fought series. So the bottom line is, we just got to get in. We're gonna get in. We don't know who it's gonna be. You can't really worry about it, but that's just kind of what our thoughts are as far as the situation now. Obviously, we've got 3 or 4 weeks to go, and a lot can change in that 3 or 4 weeks. So we'll just have to see what happens. And we've got some fan questions too that we can answer. We'll get to some right now. We had one from Alex that talks about as we're approaching the playoffs here. What do the Ducks need to do to get their defense back on track? Basically, the lockdown mentality that they had, and how banged up is the Ducks defense? I guess on the banged up part, well, we know Vatanen's out, day to day upper body with the elbow to the face that we talked about. Bieksa, again, the lower body injury. And as far as I know, Stoner has been okay. His hip flexor hasn't been an issue recently, so he's good to go, though we did see Holzer in that game. So that's kind of where we are on the health side. And again, we mentioned Fowler with the visor, or the shield, that is. So hopefully he gets that off too. So that's kind of where we're at. I think the Ducks just need to settle down, Eddie. I think they were kind of a victim of circumstance in the Colorado game with Vatanen being out. And then obviously the bad passes and turnovers in the St. Louis game didn't do them any favors either. But I think if they just get their confidence back, keep the play simple, not try to hurry so many passes, I think they'll get back on track. I still agree with you. I think Theodore coming up if Vatanen can't go would be the thing to do. But again, I'm not the GM or the coach, but that's just my suggestion. What are your thoughts, Eddie?
Yeah, I don't think they're too banged up. I mean, Vatanen's day to day. I think we would have heard something if Bieksa was long term, and we've got the guys to replace them. And when Fowler, I mean, hopefully he gets his shield off for this next game coming up. Getzlaf only wore it for 3 games. Fowler's third game was against the Blues with the shield on. So, hopefully he gets that off and he can get back to playing his game. If Vatanen comes back for Monday, maybe Wednesday, that helps the defense out a lot because that gets back to playing. Everybody gets to play the style that they're used to playing. And then you've got Stoner in case somebody goes down. Like we said, we've got Theodore if anybody gets hurt long term to bring him up, and we've seen that he can make an instant impact in the Ducks lineup when he comes up. So I don't think they're banged up long term. I mean, it might be a difficult couple days coming up to make sure everybody's ready for Monday, or if not Monday, then Wednesday. And once you get everybody back, we'll see a lot of similar style to the Ducks defense, and hopefully they get back to winning some games.
I agree with you completely, and I agree. I think they'll be fine. Going forward here, like you said, they're not too banged up, so they should be good, and they should get back on track. I think just had a couple bad periods. The second period against Colorado, and the third period against the Blues. So it wasn't like the team completely, didn't play well. I mean, obviously they could do much better, but they should be good going into Monday's game against New Jersey. Another question, this is kind of a general question I got from some people this week, is about the goalie rotation. They're going with Gibson 2 games, they're going with Anderson 2 games, and some people are just wondering, whether or not that's productive or if they should stick with one. This goalie stuff always comes up. What do you think, Eddie? You think that they should keep rotating every 2 games? Or do you think that maybe they should start trying to, go with one as the playoffs approach?
Well, I think up until the last two games it had been working. They had both been hot. Anderson hadn't lost a game in I don't know how long. Gibson had been playing really good hockey as well, and I mean he played a really good game in Washington, and then had a difficult game in Colorado. So you can go to Freddie against the Blues, and he has a difficult game as well, and a lot of turnovers and empty net goals. So it makes the score look a lot worse on his side. But I think they go with him. Against the Devils on Monday. I like how it's working. I mean, I think they probably continue to do this until a guy gets hot, and then you continue and you ride him closer into the playoffs. And I think that's what they're waiting for right now. I mean, they're both playing so well. They're probably waiting for one guy to cool off. Unfortunately, both of them cooled off. So you kind
Right.
of got to keep going rolling with the way you were doing it. I mean, the goalies get used to that rhythm, and then once a guy starts playing really well and consistently, then you put him into start maybe 3 or 4 in a row.
Yeah, I think you just keep rotating them 2 and 2, like you said, and maybe in the final 2 weeks or so, if they're both doing that, maybe that's the time when Boudreaux decides to, start to go with one more than the other. Like you said, it's kind of unfortunate they both kind of had rough patches this last week, so it's still going to be a process in the next couple of games and next couple of weeks actually, and I think they'll go from there. Another question also from Alex. He asks about the Ducks making some roster moves, and he's curious as it's funny because I just wrote this. He's curious to see if Wagner will come up and Ritchie will go down. And that's something that I just wrote about. If you didn't notice, in the last game that they played against St. Louis, Ritchie got bumped down to the fourth line, and he only played 7 minutes and like 47 seconds. It was the lowest ice time out of anybody. Everybody else, I believe, had over 10 minutes of ice time at least. So he got bumped down. We've seen him all over the team as far as the lineup. We've seen him, we've seen him with Perry, we've seen him with Getzlaf, we've seen him with I think Kessler too at one time or another. So he's been all over, and now he's down at the bottom. And Wagner's picked up his game. If you haven't seen it, he's had 5 goals in 9 games with the San Diego Gulls, and he actually had the game winner on Friday night against Bakersfield. So he's really picked it up because that's kind of been the one critique on him is you all know that he can crush people with his checks. He plays hard. He goes on the forecheck. We've all seen that, but scoring has kind of been the issue. And he's really picked it up this season. He's had 4 goals while he was at Colorado. He's now got 5 with the goals. So, I mean, I would bring him up. I would throw him in the lineup. I mean, he would probably go, if they did bring him, they'd probably throw him on the fourth line. But, Eddie, they put Ritchie with Getzlaf. I mean, I really wouldn't mind putting Wagner with Getzlaf and Perron until Stewart and Paris can come back. We're still waiting on those guys. There's no timetable on Paris yet. Stewart is still a few weeks out. I know it's far fetched, but hey, if you put Ritchie with Getzlaf, I have no problem with them throwing Wagner up there.
Yeah, and I like how Richie is played on the physical end. I like he's getting in front of the net. He's got some good chances. He's hit the post twice. I think he's just missing that confidence that comes with being a goal scorer in the NHL. And I think if once he gets the goal, I think it's going to be a lot easier on him. But there's only so many games you can wait until he gets that goal. And I think with Wagner playing so well in the AHL right now. It's worth a shot. If we bring him up, send Richie down, see how it works out. If it doesn't work out, I mean, by the time that's all done, Period could be ready to come back. Stewart could be ready to go back, and then they're both down there. So it's something you could test out right now. Like you said, he'll probably go either fourth or first line, switching with Garbett. It's something they were doing with Richie, and they kind of play the similar role. But yeah, I don't think it would hurt. I think it'd be good for Richie to go down there right now, gain some confidence, score some goals in the AHL, and maybe bring him back up closer to the playoffs, or wait till next season.
Yeah, I agree, and I liked Garbett on the line with Getzlaf. I thought that was an interesting move by Boudreaux too, to throw him up there. I mean, he goes to the net and uses his speed too. That's another good move. So, I mean, they could keep Garbett on the top line and maybe have a fourth line of Wagner, Thompson, Santorelli, and Horkoff. Have those 4 guys kind of rotating in on that line. So that's another option too. So there's plenty of things that they can do. The good thing is the Ducks have the depth now. Like we said, they're going to get back those other 2 key players too. So in terms of actually really on the offense and the defense, Eddie, the Ducks do have plenty of depth here going into the playoffs.
Well, yeah, and Horkoff is able to play now as well, which creates some issues on the fourth line, seeing if they're actually going to play him or not. But he's ready to go, and like you said, bringing Peary and Stewart back in the lineup, you'll have a lot more guys with NHL experience coming into the lineup, and it makes them a lot better. I mean, they're already a good team right now. They were playing good hockey. I mean, a couple bad games in a row, but I think they'll get back on track, and bringing those guys in the lineup is going to help for a late playoff push.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Ducks are going to get out of this little mini slump, and you're going to see them this week. They're going to do better, and I think really that they're going to win at least 2 of these 3 games, hopefully, and turn it around coming up the next couple of weeks here. We'll get to some other news around the NHL too, as well. I guess the big thing that kind of came out this week, talked about this, was Teemu Selanne's comments about the doping in the sports world. It's been all over the place. We saw the tennis star Sharapova come out with being tested for a positive substance. We know about our own Horkoff having the issue, and we've seen other players as well in the NHL that have had these issues. And Teemu comes out on his he has a blog now. If you don't know, it's on Selanne.com. You can go check it out. We linked it on one of our articles where we did a poll question. And he talked about the doping news, and here's just a brief quote of what he said. We'll talk about the poll question, and we'll kind of give our opinions on this. But he said that recent doping news has been depressing. When the athletes testing positive are big names and have used the same drug, which was banned a couple months ago. Every failed doping test has been taken seriously, and it should be remembered that it's an athlete's responsibility for everything they eat, drink, or inject in their bodies. Blaming others and claiming ignorance doesn't help. And he goes on to say that that players should be banned for life from the sport. And we basically ran a poll question to see what you guys thought, whether or not you thought they should be banned for life or some other alternate choice. And it looked like in our poll that almost 50% of you felt that the players should be banned, but only for a certain amount of games. You didn't believe in the lifetime ban overall. Another quarter of you did believe in the lifetime ban, and then another quarter thought if PEDs were being used solely for recovery purposes, then they should be okay. So kind of a split, Eddie, on our poll question. All over the place there. I mean, obviously the majority felt a ban, but for a certain amount of games, which is where I feel that's what I feel is the right choice. But what do you think about Teemu's comments and all the stuff we've seen it in baseball? Lance Armstrong with the cycling, we've seen it all over the place. So what are your thoughts?
Well, first thing I thought was Teemu has a blog, but I mean, continuing from there, I mean, it's been a lot of news coming out, not just in the NHL, but in the sports world, with high-level athletes and I mean some lower-level ones as well, using drugs and using ones that had just been banned months ago and claiming ignorance. I mean, Maria Sharapova is one of the biggest ones. A drug that just got banned a couple months ago. She'd been using for most of her career, and then some claimed ignorance that she didn't know that it had become banned, and she took responsibility for it. And a couple of UFC fighters, I can't remember their names, but one was over 50 and the other was just over 40. So on the older end. We saw it in the NHL with Horkoff this year, as well as Jared Tenorti, a recent one about 3 days ago now. And a lot of times you see it with older athletes for recovery, like a lot of people were saying, or to just keep up with the play of the younger players. But I think the troubling one is seeing a player as young as Jared Tenorti get a 20-game suspension for using performance-enhancing drugs, and that's a scary thing. Seeing the way a lot of younger players coming in now to try and get an edge and use it, and I do think the lifetime ban creates issues. The NHL will never do it because I'm sure they're okay giving a fourth liner or Sean Horkoff or Jared Tenorti, guys who aren't big names in the NHL. I'm sure they're okay in a way of giving those guys a lifetime ban. It doesn't really affect them that much. Maybe it gets their point across, but the issue is say Horkoff gets a lifetime ban this season, and the next season, Sidney Crosby or Steven Stamkos is test positive. I don't think there's any way, no matter what, that they ban those guys lifetime from the NHL. I mean, no matter what they've done previously, and then that creates an issue is you can't be consistent with that. You can't just ban a fourth line. You can't not ban a guy because of his name. The NHL does not want to get in a situation like that, and that's the situation that it could possibly create. So I think they stay away from that. But I like what they're doing right now. I think a 20-game suspension is long enough that it deters some players. If you still see next year or years from now that it's still happening on a regular basis, you up it. Maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 a season. But I don't think you ever get to the point where it's a lifetime ban. I think that's just too risky for the NHL, and I don't think it's something they want to pursue.
Yeah, I mean, the only time I could maybe see it, Eddie, is if someone's done it maybe 3 or 4 times. Maybe at that point you go, look, you're not learning your lesson. You're still trying to cheat the system, so to speak. And maybe at that point, I agree with you. I think maybe you do an increase. Maybe you do 20 games, and then it's 30 or 40, and then maybe it is a whole season. And then after that, I would say if they do it again, then maybe a lifetime ban. Maybe a incremental process. Might be the way to do it. Because like you said, it's going to create a problem if you're going to do a lifetime ban. And then, like you said, there's disparity between the players. Let's not kid ourselves. We know that there's superstar players that are worth more to this sport than other ones. And not just this sport; it's all sports. I mean, you can talk our heads off about that. I mean, and we've also seen players involved in other things this season and not get suspended, and they've been in criminal investigations. And I'm not talking about just Kane. There's also Evander Kane, who was also in a sexual assault deal that he had going on. And there's a few other NHLers out there too that have had this, and they weren't even suspended. This big issue of the PEDs, and then we're not even looking at some of these other issues. So I think the best thing is to do the suspension and increase it as the offenses carry on, Eddie.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely the way to go. And like you said, if they do it another time, I mean, let's say Horkoff gets caught. I mean, I'm not picking on Horkoff here, but just because it's an easy example for us to refer to. But if he gets caught next year, I think then it's fair to say, yeah, okay, you're banned for life from the sport because he's done it again. I mean, you can't ban him for life instantly. I know Teemu mentioned you can't really claim ignorance. It doesn't help. But there's going to be a time where a guy actually doesn't know. I mean, it is the athlete's responsibility to know what they're taking and if it's a banned substance and if they're allowed to take it. But there's got to be a one time, maybe 1 out of 100, where a guy doesn't really know. And if you ban him for life, I mean, is that really fair? So I think definitely having, a two-time thing. So you ban him instantly for 20 games. Like you said, incremental increases if it gets worse. Like say this 20-game suspension doesn't help curb people from using PEDs, maybe up to 30 or 40. And then if he does it again, then yeah, I think it's fair to ban a guy for life from the sport if he continues to use PEDs.
Yeah, and I mean this is going to be a problem that it's going to be around everywhere. I mean this isn't just something that's affecting hockey. I mean as we mentioned, you've seen this in all the other sports. We've seen it. I mean you look at the cycling thing and you look at Lance Armstrong. I mean he was the target of the media in there. And I'm not defending him because I mean he did what he did, and he ended up going on Oprah and all that, and we all watched that long ordeal. But the thing is a lot of people in that sport were doing it, so they picked him because he was the biggest names, So that's what's going to be interesting too, because if a big name player has it happen, a Lance Armstrong type, a Patrick Kane, a Sidney Crosby, something like that. Kopitar. I don't know, any one of those kind of players. It'd be really interesting to see the reaction, because I'm sure there's other players that have done it. I mean, it's the nature of the sport. So it's going to be something that they're going to have to deal with. But I agree with you. I think the way the league's handling it now is appropriate, and they do the testing throughout the season, and I think that's just the only way you're going to be able to do it to keep everybody honest.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that's troubling right now for me is, I mean, we've seen it in almost every sport. It's usually the older guys or girls who are having trouble recovering. I mean, you look at the recent ones, Horkoff, Sharapova, the two UFC fighters are in the elder ages of their careers. They're looking to stay ahead, keep up with some of the younger guys. I think the issue is seeing a guy like Jared Tenorti, like I said. I mean, he's not an old guy. He's in his early 20s. I mean, seeing a guy like that get banned for taking PEDs is a step in the wrong direction. We don't want to see younger guys come in the league and having to turn to taking performance enhancing drugs to keep up with the competition. So I think that's something the league needs to focus on right now. I think banning them for 20 games is a big deal for players who have established contracts, but it might not be as big of an issue for a guy just coming into the league who's not making a ton of money. He loses maybe 100K, which I mean is still a lot of money, but I mean that's something they're definitely gonna have to keep their eye on.
Yeah, I agree, and we'll shift gears here and go into some more maybe less controversial, more positive news. We saw this weekend Jaromir Jagr played in his 16-15 career game, tying Larry Murphy, 8th place in the NHL. And I mentioned this on Facebook. He's one of the guys that I looked to back before the Ducks were around. I followed Yager and Lemieux back when they played with the Penguins, and some of you know that's kind of my second team or other team. Obviously the Ducks are my number one team, but that's the other team I had watched before the Ducks even existed. So that's amazing. And talking about PEDs and all that stuff, I'm hoping he's not using it, Eddie. But he's been around for a long time, and what an amazing career for Jaromir Jagr.
Yeah, I'm sure they're testing him like crazy now. A guy who's 44, scoring over 50 points in the NHL. But I'd be surprised if he was. I mean, he's just that type of athlete. He's a really, competitive guy. He keeps in good shape. The fact that he can score over 50 points at age 44 is just amazing. But probably Selanne's looking at him like saying, "Why couldn't I do that?" But yeah, it's great to see, and Yager is going to go down as one of the top 20 players in the league. Obviously sitting third all time in points right now. It's hard to say he's better than anybody up there. It's really hard to compare guys. Gordie Howe missed 8 seasons. You got to remember that too, and Yager missed 3. And it's really hard just to say, okay, because you have this many points, you're ranked that high in NHL history. You got to take into account points per game and all these things, how many seasons they missed, and it's tough. But I definitely think he's worthy of being top 20 all time. There's a lot of great players in history, and the fact that he's still playing is just so many generations have watched Yager play. It's just amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, going all the way back to 1990 when he started with Pittsburgh. It's just crazy to see him still, out there, like you said, wheeling and dealing on the ice. So that's going to be good to see for Florida too. They're streaking, like we said, in the playoffs. They're doing well too, and they're going to make some noise in the Eastern Conference as well. Some other news coming up for the website and the blog in general. We're going to have another watch party coming up on March 20th. It's a Sunday. It's against the Winnipeg Jets. I believe the start is at 12 or 1 o'clock. It's kind of an early start, but we'll be there. Again, we had an awesome crowd for the one against the Kings. If you were there, it was standing room only. Everybody was getting loud and crazy. It was a really good time. We had people in the bar area too hanging out because we had so much overflow. So that was a really good time. So we're going to have that one coming up. We don't have any planned after that, but obviously with the playoffs and whatnot, I'm sure we'll have some more over there at El Ranchito in Orange. So be sure to join us on the 20th. It'll be a good time. It'll be kind of like a Sunday brunch type deal, I guess, but it'll be fun, and hopefully the Ducks will win that day. It'll be a good game. The other news that we had too is, officially came out that we're part of the Puck Network now. We have the website up there. Had another company that believed in us, basically, Eddie. I guess we kind of know what we're talking about, but we got an investor basically, and they're doing a website that covers the entire league now. We've got some people that are covering the Penguins under the Pens and Pucks blog. We've also got some people covering Columbus under the Blue Jackets Army. We've also got Denver Avs covering the Colorado Avalanche as well. So we've got some other sites up, blogs and social media covering some of the other teams through the Puck Network, and there's plenty of openings too. We're looking to build up everything. Ducks and Pucks has done so well that they want to try to basically copy what we do and make it for all the other teams. So that's what's going on. You can go check it out. Go on the pucknetwork.com. There's a join our team button. You hit that and you can apply. There's all kinds of stuff open, writers, editors, social media as well. And they're offering internships too to help you out with your school credits. So it's something to check out. If even if you're just a Ducks fan, you're listening, but you know somebody that's a fan of another team as well, just spread the word and tell them that there's opportunities out there. And we actually recently had one of our writers, Eddie, if you remember Alex, he left Ducks and Pucks and he ended up just getting a job recently. Had a referral for him out to the new company, so I'm happy for him. So that's another thing that to look forward to is if you apply and do some of these positions, it can lead on to something else, maybe in another career as well. So check that out, and we'll be getting that going more on the website. There'll be more posts up on there. There'll be more links and whatnot, and more news coming. NHL worldwide hockey too as well. So we'll be covering everything on there. The last thing too, we're going to give away some tickets. It's a fan appreciation night you listen to this show. If you remember, we did it before where we give out keywords and basically you listen to each show and they'll have a phrase that the words make. And you email that to us, and that's your entry. So what'll happen is this show and the next three, actually the next two shows, there'll be a word that I give out, and that'll make up the phrase. When we're done, you just email it to us, and we'll pick one of the lucky ones. Obviously, the phrase isn't complex; it's not like a big secret. We just try to get people to watch the show and get excited about the Ducks. But the word this week is going to be Stanley. And then we'll have a couple other words, and then we'll let you know what it's going to be. And we'll have 2 tickets, 400 level, beside the Ducks attack twice on Fan Appreciation Night, which if you haven't gone is a lot of fun. The Ducks give away a lot of stuff. So not only can you get free tickets, but you can maybe win some other stuff at the game as well. And that's it for the show this week. Thanks for listening. Eddy and I will be back next week, hopefully with some better news, and the Ducks start winning some of those games, Eddy.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully, I mean, having these next 3 games at home is going to be huge, and we need to see them get back on track here. I mean, hopefully the slump isn't a long one, and the important games to pick up at home. They've been good at home all season, and it's going to be a tough battle, but I think realistically they could win 2 or 3 here.
Definitely, and we'll see you next week. Let's go Ducks.